The moon was full that night, round, brilliant, casting a silvery sheen over the thick canopy of pine trees surrounding the Blackstone Pack grounds. The wind whispered through the leaves like it knew a secret no one else did, and the tension in the air was so sharp Elara could almost taste it. It settled on her tongue like ash. She stood barefoot at the edge of the ceremonial stone platform, her pulse pounding in her ears as the crowd gathered behind her. Her birthday dress, a soft pale blue thing she had chosen with such hope, clung to her like a second skin, wrinkled at the hem where her trembling fingers kept twisting the fabric. Her heart felt like it might split open in her chest. 18. That was the age, the sacred threshold, the moment a werewolf's soul recognized their mate with a snap of instinct and scent and primal need. And tonight, it had happened. Just not the way she'd imagined. Her mate, Lucien Vale, the soon-to-be beta of the pack, the golden boy everyone adored, stood a few feet away. Broad-shouldered, tall, and devastatingly handsome, his dark hair glinted like polished obsidian under the moonlight. His jaw was clenched. His eyes, once so warm when they passed each other in the halls or met during patrols, were now cold, flat, unforgiving. "So you feel it too, don't you?" she had whispered when their eyes locked just minutes ago, and he had. But instead of stepping forward and claiming her, he had turned away, and now, in front of the entire pack, he was going to make it final. The murmurs around them dulled to a hush as Alpha Rourke, the pack leader, stepped forward, his voice deep and firm. "Elara of Blackstone, on the night of your 18th year, the moon has revealed your mate to you. Do you accept the bond as the goddess has intended?" Elara swallowed, throat dry and aching. Her eyes flicked to Aiden. She expected something, anything, in his gaze. Regret, fear, maybe shame. But he looked past her, cold. "And see, I reject the bond," Aiden said, his voice like ice shattering on stone. "Elara is not worthy of me." The words hit her harder than a blow. Gasps rippled through the crowd, followed by silence so heavy it choked the air from her lungs. Her knees buckled, but she didn't fall. Not in front of them, not in front of him. She blinked, once, then again, as if the world might shift, rewind, make sense. But no one was moving. No one was saying it was a mistake. Her wolf, quiet since the moment Aiden had looked at her, curled into a tight, grieving ball inside her. He meant it. Her stomach twisted. "Why?" she managed to croak, her voice barely audible. Aiden turned fully to her now. His expression was a mask of cool disinterest, but his voice was venom. "Because you're weak," he said. "And 'cause you're average, you're not Luna material. You're not enough." She heard the murmurs then, the snickers of other wolves, the pitying looks, the judgmental glances. "Elara," the alpha began. But she didn't wait to hear what he had to say. She turned on her heel and walked off the platform, her feet bleeding from the sharp edges of the stone, her pride bleeding deeper. No one stopped her, no one reached for her, not even her parents, who stood silently at the edge of the crowd, their expressions unreadable. Her world didn't just crack that night. It shattered. 3 days later, somewhere in the city, Elara's coat was 2 sizes too big. Her boots had a hole in the sole, and her hands were stiff from the cold. She stood behind the cafe counter of Davenport Roasters, the smell of espresso and vanilla clinging to her skin, the scent used to make her feel cozy. Safe. Now it was a bandage on a bullet wound. "And 1 caramel oat latte for Mark," she called out, placing the cup on the pickup counter. Mark, a man in a sleek navy coat with designer shoes and a Bluetooth earpiece, didn't even look at her. He grabbed the cup and walked out without a word. Elara didn't take it personally. She didn't take anything personally anymore. After leaving the pack, she'd taken a bus with nothing but a duffel bag, a stolen credit card from her father's desk drawer, and her wolf's stunned silence. She had no plan, no friends here, no allies. But she had a job, a roof over her head, a crappy rented room above the shop, and enough distance between her and the pack to breathe. If her wolf had still been alive in her, maybe she'd have felt something other than numb exhaustion. But her soul beast hadn't stirred in days. She hadn't shifted. She hadn't howled. Elara was starting to wonder if her wolf had died from the heartbreak. "Shay," someone said softly behind her. It was Mira, the cafe manager, older, motherly, a little nosy, but kind. "Hen, you okay?" Mira asked. Elara forced a smile. "Just tired." And you've been working doubles every day since you got here. You sure you're not running from something? Only my entire life. I'm fine. Really. Mira narrowed her eyes but didn't push. Oh, right. But let me know if you need a break. You've earned one. As Mira walked away, the door chimed, and he walked in. Not her ex-mate. Someone worse. A man dressed in black, expensive black, tailored coat, sleek slacks, polished shoes. His presence sucked the air out of the room. He didn't walk in, he arrived, as if the building had been summoned into his path. His eyes were dark, cold, too focused. He scanned the cafe and landed on her, and for the first time since the night of her rejection, Elara's wolf stirred. One soft flick of an ear. The man watched her. Not like a stranger, not like a man interested in coffee, but like a hunter watching something that should not have left the forest. He took a slow step forward. Elara's heart dropped into her stomach. He wasn't smiling. The man stepped further into the cafe, the door swinging closed behind him with a soft chime that barely echoed over the low indie music playing in the background. Everything about him felt too much, too tailored, too still, too focused on her. Elara's fingers tightened around the countertop, knuckles whitening. Her wolf, who hadn't stirred in days, was awake now, coiled and wary, the way a prey animal might react when cornered by a predator. His eyes never left hers, midnight dark, unreadable. She quickly looked away, forcing herself to focus on the cash register. She punched in a fake order just to give her hands something to do, something normal. But every part of her body was tense, aware, listening for footsteps, listening for danger. Can I help you?" she asked when he reached the counter, keeping her voice even. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he studied her, not in the appreciative way men sometimes did, not in the lazy way drunk guys did after happy hour, no. He looked at her like he was memorizing something, like she was important. "And take a black coffee," he said at last. His voice was deep, smooth, but with an undercurrent of gravel that scraped something raw in her chest. "Anything else?" and she asked, trying to avoid eye contact again. He leaned slightly forward, resting his hands on the counter. "For name." Her pulse spiked. There were 100 ways he could have asked it, lightly, casually, with a smile. But he didn't. He asked it like a demand, like he already knew it and was daring her to lie. "Elara," she said before she could stop herself. Her throat felt dry, his lips barely curved. Not a smile, something else, and no. Her breath caught. That was it. That was the moment everything shifted. She didn't know how, didn't know why, but the air between them thickened, like a storm had just crossed an invisible threshold into the room and no one else could feel it but her. She looked up at him, really looked. His features were striking. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, a faint shadow of stubble lining his jaw. Hair black as ink, swept back with precise care. Everything about him screamed wealth, control, power, and his presence was overwhelming. "You've been looking for me," he said, tone quiet but absolute. Elara's stomach twisted. "What? No, I haven't." You left your pack 3 days ago. You didn't tell anyone where you were going. You've been here, working double shifts at a cafe, staying in a rented room above a bakery. Alone. Is that your idea of hiding?" Her mouth went dry. She stepped back from the counter slowly, heart thundering. "Who are you?" A pause. Then, "My name is Lucien Draven." The name hit her like a slap. She didn't know why it sounded familiar until her memory scraped together a few scattered pieces. The headlines, the gossip, the myths. Lucien Draven, the reclusive alpha billionaire who owned half the real estate in the city and half the politicians too. He didn't belong to any pack. He wasn't part of the council. Rumors swirled around him like fog, cold twisting stories about how he had once been the alpha of a powerful rogue faction, that he had torn down his own pack to build an empire. He wasn't just dangerous, he was untouchable. "You're mistaken," she said, voice shaky. "So I don't know you, but I know you, Elara." Her name sounded different on his lips, possessive, measured. And then he did something that made her blood freeze. He leaned closer, inhaled just slightly, like he was scenting her. "And you haven't shifted since your mate rejected you," he said, and the words sliced through her composure like a blade. Her whole body went rigid. Chai didn't tell you that," she whispered. Lucian tilted his head. I didn't need you to. His eyes darkened. And you were claimed by the wrong wolf, and now your soul is bleeding. She stepped further back, bumping into the espresso machine behind her. I don't know what you want from me, she whispered. Lucian's voice dropped even lower. And you will. He placed a $100 bill on the counter. Keep the change. And then he left. No warning. No goodbye. Just silence. Cold and echoing, where his presence had been. He walked out the door and disappeared into a sleek black car parked at the curb. Tinted windows. No license plate. Elara stood frozen behind the counter, her hands trembling. Her lungs refused to fill. Who was he? And why had he come for her? Later that night the moon was higher when she climbed the creaky stairs to her rented room. She turned the lock 3 times, once out of habit, twice out of fear. Lucian's words echoed in her head like footsteps in an empty hallway. The new were claimed by the wrong wolf. She sat on the edge of the small twin bed, hands fisted in the blanket. Her wolf was awake now, pacing, whispering in her bones. Not like before, not broken, not silent, awake, alert. Like it recognized something in Lucian that her human mind refused to. Elara took a shaky breath and tried to convince herself this was all a coincidence. A bizarre, terrifying coincidence. But deep down, in a part of her that still pulsed with primal instinct, she knew the truth. Lucian Draven hadn't found her by accident. He had been watching. And this wasn't over. Elara didn't sleep that night. She tried. She curled beneath the second-hand quilt, shut her eyes tight, and listened to the distant hum of city life beyond the cracked window pane. But sleep never came. Lucian's voice echoed in her head like a phantom, too deep, too calm, too deliberate. When you were claimed by the wrong wolf. What the hell did that mean? Was he just some arrogant alpha trying to mess with her when she was already vulnerable? Or, worse, did he know something about her she didn't? That terrified her more than anything. She sat up in bed just after 3 a.m., sweat clinging to her skin, moonlight spilled across the worn wooden floors, painting the room in silver streaks. The cheap ceiling fan spun slowly above her, squeaking every other rotation. Her wolf was quiet now, not gone but watchful. She stared at her reflection in the cracked mirror above the dresser. Pale skin, wild chestnut hair that fell in loose waves around her face. Her eyes, usually soft, too trusting, looked sharper tonight. Harder. Like something inside her had shifted after that encounter. A knock on the door startled her so hard she nearly fell off the bed. Her heart lodged in her throat. She stared at the door like it might explode. Another knock. Firmer this time. "On to Elara?" came a soft, cautious voice. Not Lucian. Her shoulders sagged with both relief and confusion. It was her landlady, Mrs. Beasley. She was sweet and nosy, always offering cold pie and unwanted advice. Elara pulled on a hoodie and cracked open the door. Mrs. Beasley was holding a large envelope in her frail hands, her eyes wide and worried behind pink-rimmed glasses. "'Tis came for you," she whispered. "This gentleman dropped it off just a few minutes ago, said it was urgent." Elara's stomach dropped. What gentleman? But the woman was already shaking her head. Tall, dark suit, didn't give a name, left in a black car. Of course he did. She took the envelope carefully, hands trembling slightly. It was thick and crisp, made of luxurious ivory paper. No name, no return address. She closed the door and locked it again. Then she sat on the bed and opened it. Inside was a single folded sheet of heavy paper, her name written in smooth, elegant script across the top. "Elara, I don't make mistakes. When I want something, I get it. Pack Alpha politics don't interest me, and I have no desire to court anyone's approval. Not theirs, and not yours. But you, Elara, you are not what you appear to be. I see what others missed. I smell the truth under your skin, your raw power, untamed, forgotten, but not broken. You need protection, guidance, control. I offer all 3. Meet me, midnight, the rooftop at 88 Viridian. Come alone, LD." Her hands clenched the page so tightly she nearly tore it. Was this a threat? A power play? Or some twisted attempt at flirtation? Whatever it was, she didn't want it. She didn't want him. Except... Her wolf stirred again. Not in warning, in recognition. The next day, Elara showed up to her shift at the cafe, pale and quiet, her movements slower than usual. Sarah, her coworker, raised an eyebrow. "You okay?" she asked, biting into a blueberry muffin at the back counter. "Then you look like you saw a ghost." "Ain't just didn't sleep," Elara muttered. "Oh, you get weird customers last night?" Elara froze. Sarah tilted her head. "Ain't the city weird's the baseline." "Contrite." She tried to focus on making lattes and wiping down counters, but her mind was elsewhere. At midnight, she would not be going to that rooftop. She would be nowhere near Lucian Draven. She planned to go to the Greyhound terminal 2 neighborhoods over and buy a one-way ticket to anywhere he wasn't. Somewhere rural, off-grid, maybe Canada. By the time she was done with her shift, she had a backpack stuffed with essentials. No forwarding address, no phone. She was ready. But fate didn't give her the luxury of disappearing quietly. That night, minus 10:14 p.m., Elara exited the cafe through the back alley entrance, hoodie pulled low, backpack slung over one shoulder. The city air was thick with summer heat, the scent of rain in the wind. She barely made it 20 steps down the alley before a sleek black car pulled into her path. No headlights, no sound, just there like a ghost. Her stomach flipped. She turned to run, but before she could take more than a step, another figure appeared from behind the alley dumpster. Tall, silent, Lucian. He didn't touch her, didn't say a word, just looked at her. And that was somehow worse. The fear that had been simmering finally boiled over into something else, rage. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she hissed, backing away. "Are you stalking me?" He stepped forward once. "Following," he corrected coolly. "And not meeting you on some rooftop," she snapped. You can't just decide." "Everything I do is a decision," he said smoothly. "And I don't chase unless I intend to catch." Her chest heaved with angry breath. Not yours." Another step. "Not yet." Elara raised her chin. "And you can't force me." Lucian's eyes flared, then softened. "No," he said, "but I can protect you." She blinked. "What?" He took something from his pocket and tossed it to her. She caught it without thinking. It was a cell phone, smashed, shattered beyond recognition. "That's yours," Lucian said quietly. Elara stared at it, her eyes widened. She hadn't taken her phone with her, she'd left it in her room. Locked in her drawer. "I found this in a gutter 2 blocks from your apartment." "Someone broke in." She froze. "And there were claw marks on the wall," he continued. "Someone followed your scent." Her blood ran cold, not Lucian. Someone else had been tracking her. "And you said you didn't want protection," he said, voice lower now. "And that was before you knew what was coming." She didn't speak. Couldn't. Lucian's eyes locked with hers. He stepped closer, so close she could feel the heat of him, the dominance in his presence. He leaned down, his mouth inches from her ear. "You're not safe, Elara. Not from me, and definitely not from them." Elara should have fought harder, should have clawed, screamed, kicked until she escaped. But after Lucian showed her the destroyed phone and told her about the break-in, something cold settled in her bones. Fear, yes, but also something more dangerous, uncertainty. Someone had followed her scent, had gotten into her apartment, had wanted something, and Lucian, this dangerous, unreadable man with eyes like winter storms, had known. She didn't trust him. But she couldn't ignore him either. That's how she ended up in the backseat of his car, silent as the city blurred past outside. Her backpack sat at her feet, her hands clenched together in her lap, every muscle in her body tight with tension. Lucian didn't speak. He sat beside her, not touching but commanding the entire space as if he owned the silence. The driver said nothing, eyes forward, dressed in all black like some kind of private security guard. Elara stared out the window, counting breaths. Streetlights turned into towering buildings. Towering buildings turned into wide avenues. And then trees. The city faded behind them. The roads widened, stretched, then narrowed again as they slipped into the shadows of the upper district. A wealthy, hidden pocket of land where old money buried its secrets behind iron gates and acres of wilderness. The car passed through a tall wrought iron gate without stopping. Security didn't ask questions. They knew Lucian Draven. Of course they did. The mansion came into view like something out of a dark fairy tale. Cold stone, towering columns, windows that seemed to watch her instead of reflect the moonlight. It was set deep into the hills, wrapped in trees, and surrounded by silence. No neighbors, no escape. She swallowed hard. The car came to a stop in the driveway. Lucian opened the door and stepped out. He didn't look back to see if she'd follow. Of course not. He expected her to, and that made her hesitate, just for a moment, before stepping out into the still night air. The house loomed before her like a judgment. She was led through wide double doors into an interior that took her breath away, not because of its beauty, though it was beautiful in a cold, sterile way, but because of its feel. The moment she stepped across the threshold, something shifted. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up. Her wolf, silent for hours, suddenly growled low in her mind. Not in warning, in recognition, again. She shook it off. The grand foyer had floors of dark marble veined in gold. A staircase curved upward like something from a Gothic novel. Crystal chandeliers glittered above. Every surface was polished to gleaming perfection. Lucian walked ahead of her, never glancing back. She noticed how the staff, even the security guards and the butler, lowered their gazes when he passed. He was feared, even here, in his own house. They passed through a corridor lined with paintings, oil portraits, most of them of wolves or stern men with cold eyes. Elara stopped at one near the end of the hall. A woman, dark-haired, striking, beautiful, and hauntingly familiar. Lucian noticed. "She's not related to you," he said flatly. "Don't let your mind go there." She blinked. "And I didn't say she was. And you were thinking it." She turned to face him. "How do you know what I'm thinking?" "And don't," he said. "But you wear your thoughts on your face like a book without a cover." She flushed, annoyed and uneasy. "And then maybe you shouldn't read me so closely." He tilted his head slightly, studying her. "Maybe I like to read." Her stomach twisted. She turned away. He led her up a set of stairs and down another wing of the house. This hallway was different, quieter, fewer portraits, no windows, more doors. At the end, he opened one and stepped aside. "Your room," he said. Elara stared into the space. It was huge, bigger than her entire apartment. A 4-poster bed draped in dark velvet. Tall bookshelves, a fireplace, a desk by the window, a plush rug beneath her feet. But it still felt like a cage. "He didn't say yes," she whispered. Lucian leaned against the doorway. "He didn't have to." She spun on him. "I'm not your guest. I'm not your prisoner. I'm in danger." He said it without emotion. She narrowed her eyes. "Try me. Why are you so interested in me? You don't know me." He stepped closer, slowly. "I know your scent. It's not ordinary. It's layered. Like someone hid what you really are beneath something weak. But I smell the strength underneath." Her throat tightened. "I'm not some hidden Omega princess or secret heiress. If that's what you're looking for, I'm a barista with a bad landlord and a worse mate history." Lucian's gaze hardened. "I rejected you." She flinched. His voice dropped lower. "In a fool. Alphas like him only want power they can tame. You aren't meant to be tamed." She didn't answer. He turned, finally, and began to walk away. At the door, he paused. "Stay in your room tonight. No wandering." Or what?" And he looked back over his shoulder. "Once there are others in this house. Some don't care about rules. They only care about bloodlines." And then he left. Later that night, Elara sat curled in the window seat of her new prison, staring out at the endless trees. She couldn't stop thinking about what he'd said. "Scent is layered. Someone hid what you really are." It was nonsense, wasn't it? She'd always felt different. She just thought it was because she was quiet, or soft, or invisible. She'd never shifted, never felt a pull toward dominance like others. Her heat had come late, weak, but something in Lucian's words had struck a chord deep inside her. A memory, or maybe a truth she didn't want to believe. She pulled her knees to her chest and rested her head on them. She should have run. She still should, but her wolf wasn't afraid, and that scared her most of all. Morning came in muted shadows. Even with sunlight seeping in through the tall windows, Elara felt a chill. The room was beautiful, yes, but the stillness in it didn't feel like peace. It felt like the calm before a storm. Her wolf stirred uneasily, alert, watchful. Something wasn't right in this house. Lucian hadn't come back the night before. No dinner, no more warnings, just silence. It left Elara with too much time to think, too much time to wonder what she'd really walked into. By the time the grandfather clock chimed 9, she'd already showered, changed into a soft black turtleneck and leggings from the wardrobe provided, and paced the entire room 3 times. She wasn't a prisoner. Not technically, there were no locks on the door. But the warning Lucian gave echoed in her head. No wandering. Still, she wasn't the type to stay where she was told. Not anymore. She'd obeyed her old alpha. She'd obeyed the mate who rejected her. She'd spent her entire life shrinking into corners just to survive. But this wasn't survival anymore. This was something else. So, heart-pounding, she opened the door. The hallway outside was empty, silent. The thick carpet muffled her footsteps as she stepped into the corridor and glanced both ways. Still no one. She turned left. The farther she walked, the colder it got. The decor shifted subtly. More shadows, fewer portraits, and the occasional closed door. Some looked like guest rooms. Others didn't. Elara's wolf paced restlessly inside her. She passed a hallway on the right, paused, then doubled back. There was something at the end of it. Something different. A large double door made of deep aged wood, carved with strange symbols. Her wolf's ears twitched in her mind. Something about that door pulled at her. Elara approached slowly, heart in her throat. The air grew colder the closer she got. The hairs on her arms stood up. Her wolf was no longer just restless. She was alert. She reached for the handle and froze. She wasn't alone. A presence moved behind her, slow and silent like a predator in the woods. She turned fast, but no one was there. Nothing, only shadows. She looked back at the door, swallowed. Curiosity warred with caution, but caution had never taught her anything. So she gripped the handle, twisted, and it opened. The room beyond wasn't just a room. It was a library, but not like any she'd seen before. The walls were floor-to-ceiling shelves, filled with leather-bound volumes. There were ancient tomes, scrolls in glass cases, and handwritten journals stacked neatly on a long, dark table in the center. There was something reverent about the space, almost sacred. Elara stepped inside slowly, listening for footsteps, heart hammering. Her fingers brushed one of the books, a black one, thin, its spine cracked with age. She opened it. The pages were handwritten in looping, precise calligraphy, and on the first line her breath caught, and the bloodlines that should not exist. The hairs on her neck rose. She turned the page. It wasn't just a history. It was a catalog. Descriptions of wolf types, extinct lineages, powers that hadn't been seen in centuries, omega blood that ran parallel to alpha blood, hybrids, rogue-borns with traits too dangerous to be allowed. And then, she stopped. A drawing, a woman, pale, silver hair braided down her back, a scar shaped like a crescent moon beneath her collarbone. Elara's hand moved to her own collarbone. The scar had always been there. She'd assumed it was from an accident as a child, something she didn't remember. Her foster guardians never talked about it. No one ever explained it. The woman on the page had her eyes. She dropped the book. The sound echoed. A second later, footsteps, heavy, controlled. Lucian. She turned in a panic, rushing to the door, but it slammed shut before she could reach it. He was already there, his eyes burned, cold fire, and told you not to wander, he said softly. Elara backed up until she hit the long table. Her heart thundered. Anshu said some people in this house don't follow rules, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. And you didn't say there was a secret library cataloging extinct bloodlines and drawings of people who look exactly like me. Lucian stepped closer. His power filled the room like smoke. She could feel it against her skin, hot and electric, laced with fury barely held in check. And told you to stay in your room because I was protecting you. From what? He didn't answer. Instead, he reached down, picked up the fallen book, and flipped through it until he found the page again. He stared at the drawing in silence. That's not you, he said, though his voice was low, uncertain. C died decades ago. And why do I have her eyes, her scar? He looked at her now, really looked, his jaw clenched. And because someone lied to you. The words hit like ice water. She blinked. What? Lucian stepped back, turning away. Oh, you shouldn't have seen this. Also, you were hiding it. And Sinai was keeping you from a truth that could put you in danger before you're ready to face it. She folded her arms. What truth? He turned back to her then, his eyes dark, feral, and never supposed to be raised among the weak. The silence that followed was like a punch to the gut. Elara's voice shook. And not special. And you're not ordinary, he said. And if you keep pretending you are, someone else will find you before I can protect you. Taint, why do you care? She demanded. Oh, you don't even know me. Lucian stepped in close. Too close. His scent hit her, cedar, smoke, something sharp underneath. His voice was low, almost a growl. I care because I smelled your fear the night you ran from your mate. I tracked you because your scent wasn't just familiar. It was marked. Marked by who? He didn't answer. She felt like the room tilted. Are you saying someone claimed me, before? Lucian leaned down until their faces were inches apart. And saying there's a reason you've always felt different. There's a reason your wolf sleeps. There's a reason your scent was masked. Elara's voice trembled. And then, tell me who I am. His jaw tightened. But then, something shifted. He lifted his hand slowly, brushed a strand of hair from her cheek, the softest touch. I'm still trying to figure that out, he murmured, and in that moment, the wall between them cracked, just slightly. The alpha and the girl with the scar. A forbidden silence passed between them, laced with tension, confusion, something unspoken. And then the door opened again. Not by Lucian's hand, someone stood in the hallway, tall, silver-haired, eyes glowing faintly with power. A stranger, no, an alpha. But not just any alpha. The moment his gaze landed on Elara, she felt it, felt her wolf rear up, violent and confused. Because she recognized him, even though she'd never seen him before. The stranger smiled coldly. So, you found her first. Lucian's entire body went still. Elara, he said low without turning. Go back to your room. Now. She didn't move, she couldn't. The other alpha stepped forward. And you kept her well hidden, Draven. But secrets don't stay buried forever. On Lucian's hand closed into a fist. Elara. Her voice barely worked. Who is he? The stranger smiled wider, and Lucian finally said his name. Uffa Thorn. Elara had never seen two wolves so still. The air in the corridor vibrated with power. Ancient, raw, territorial. Lucian stood in front of her like a wall of stone. Shoulders squared, jaw set. His scent sharper than ever. Behind him, Alpha Thorn didn't move either, but his silver eyes glittered with something hungry, something ancient. Thorn, Lucian said again, voice low, controlled, barely. Draven. Thorn returned smoothly. His voice was a silky threat, the kind that curled in your gut and whispered promises of ruin. And you've been busy. Lucian didn't answer. Neither did Elara. Her feet were rooted to the floor, heart pounding so violently she could barely hear anything over the blood in her ears. Her wolf was pacing, agitated, not just from fear, something else. Recognition. But not in the way it had happened with her old mate. This was different, worse, primal. Thorn's eyes moved past Lucian and landed on her again. She hated the way he looked at her, like a possession, like something valuable, not someone. So this is the girl, he mused aloud. Interesting. I expected more. His gaze lingered. Or perhaps less. Lucian took a deliberate step forward, picked out. But Thorn only smiled, stepping fully into the hallway now, ignoring the charged growl that started low in Lucian's throat. You should have come to me the moment you realized what she was, Thorn said, circling like a vulture. Instead, you hid her. You brought her here, into your territory, without council permission. Do you know what that looks like? Since she's under my protection. Thorn raised an eyebrow. Funny. She doesn't look like she asked for it. Elara flinched, but Lucian's body stiffened. He turned slightly, just enough to glance back at her. Go back to your room, Elara. No, she said, shakier than she wanted it to sound, but firm. Lucian's nostrils flared. Thorn chuckled. Feisty, I like that. Don't speak to her, Lucian snapped, and this time the command of an alpha rang in every syllable. It wasn't just possessive, it was protective, dangerous, and it sent a shiver down Elara's spine. Thorn held up both hands, mock innocent. Touchy. You always did have a weakness for broken things. Sin I don't break what I protect, Lucian growled. For a moment, the two of them simply stared at each other, power pulsing from them in waves, and Elara could see it now, the history between them, the bitter, unfinished kind. This wasn't just about her, not completely, but she was part of it. Why are you here? Lucian asked finally. Thorn's smile faded into something colder. And because I want what belongs to me. Elara's breath caught. Lucian's face turned to steel. Say she's not yours. And she was marked, wasn't she? Thorn said, gaze flashing. And said it yourself once. The girl with the sleeping wolf, the buried power, the sealed blood. She's mine by right. Lucian moved so fast it was like a blur. 1 second he was standing still, the next his hand was at Thorn's throat, slamming him back into the wall with enough force to crack plaster. "Oh, no, you don't get to claim her," Lucian said through gritted teeth. "Oh, not now. Not ever." Thorn only laughed, even as blood welled where Lucian's claws pricked his skin. "And touchy," he said again, voice rasping. "Interesting." Elara stood frozen, wide-eyed, watching them as if they were ghosts from a story no one had ever told her. And then suddenly, Lucian dropped him. Thorn straightened, brushed dust from his coat like nothing had happened. "I'll be seeing you again, Elara," he said with a twisted smile. Lucian snarled. "Oh, but won't." Thorn had already turned and was walking away, unhurried, his voice echoing as he added, "I really should have told her everything. She won't thank you when she finds out you've been lying." The moment he disappeared around the corner, silence fell like a suffocating blanket. Lucian didn't move, neither did Elara, not for a long minute. Then, finally, she found her voice. "What the hell was that?" Lucian didn't answer. She stepped toward him. "Oh, tell me." Still nothing. "Lucian, Shine told you not to leave the room," he said sharply. She flinched. He closed his eyes for a second, exhaled hard, and then looked at her again, really looked at her. His eyes were darker than she'd ever seen them. "Oh, and you don't understand what's at stake," he said. "Oh, and tell me," she said, fists clenched at her sides. "And stop treating me like a child or a prisoner. And you're not a prisoner. Finu won't let me leave." He exhaled again, rubbed his jaw. "You don't want to leave right now. Let me decide that." "Saw what he is. And I saw what you are," she said. Lucian stilled. "And I saw what both of you were willing to do to each other over something I don't even understand. So explain it, Lucian, please." He looked like he wanted to argue. Fight her, but then the fight left him, and he stepped back. "Come with me," he said. She followed. They didn't speak as he led her down a side hall into a different wing of the estate, down stone steps, past 2 locked doors, into a small room lit only by firelight. There were no windows, only a single glass case in the center of the room, and inside it, a necklace, simple, gold. With a charm shaped like a crescent moon, her scar burned the second she saw it. Lucian didn't say anything for a long time. Then Tinette belonged to her. "And girl in the book?" He nodded. She was the last of her line. Everyone thought it ended with her. "But then you came along." "And don't understand," Elara said. "And not special. I was abandoned. I don't shift. I'm nothing." He turned and looked at her like she'd insulted the sun itself. "And you're not nothing," he said, voice low. "On, you're more than you've ever been allowed to be." She swallowed hard. "Then what am I?" Lucian took a step closer. "And I don't know yet," he admitted. But I'm going to find out, and I'm not letting anyone, especially Thorn, touch you until I do." Something shifted in the air between them, not heat, not power. Something intimate. She looked up at him. "Why do you care so much?" His jaw worked. "Because you were mine the moment you walked into that club, bleeding and furious. And because I'm not letting another alpha break you just so he can use you." "And not yours," she whispered, though something in her chest twisted when she said it. Lucian didn't smile, but his eyes darkened. "No," he said, but I will be." Elara's breath caught, and for the first time she didn't feel afraid of that promise. She felt like it might already be happening. Elara sat in the quiet room long after Lucian left, The necklace in the glass case pulsed softly under the firelight like it had a heartbeat. Like it was waiting. Everything inside her was a tangled mess. Confusion, fear, anger. But under all of it, something else had taken root. Hope. And that scared her more than anything. She wasn't supposed to hope anymore. Not after what happened with Jasper. Her supposed fated mate who'd looked her in the eyes and told her she was weak, worthless, unworthy of the mark. She'd barely survived the rejection, the sickness, the shame, the look her pack had given her when she came back with blood on her legs and emptiness in her chest. She was never supposed to feel again, yet here she was, thinking about Lucian's voice, the way his body had moved between her and Thorn without hesitation, the flash in his eyes when he said she was his the moment he saw her. He didn't say it to manipulate her. He said it like a vow, and that terrified her more than anything. She stood slowly and walked toward the glass case. The necklace shimmered as she neared, and her scar prickled beneath the collar of her oversized sweatshirt. It wasn't her rejection scar this time. It was something new, something beneath the skin, like a tether pulling tighter and tighter. Elara pressed her hand to the glass. Nothing happened. No power, no spark, no vision like in Lucian's books. Just silence. She hated that it disappointed her. Later that night, she was back in the guest bedroom. She couldn't sleep, couldn't stop thinking, couldn't rest. Lucian hadn't come back, and she hated that she kept glancing at the door. "You're being stupid," she told herself, curling tighter under the covers. But just as her eyes fluttered shut, she heard the click of the doorknob. Her eyes snapped open. Lucian stood there in a black shirt, sleeves rolled up, his face unreadable in the moonlight. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at her. "I didn't mean to scare you earlier," he said finally. "Oh, you didn't," she lied. He walked in slowly and sat in the armchair across from the bed, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. "I forget what it's like," he said quietly, "and to be around someone who doesn't already know what I am." And what are you exactly?" she asked, arms folded under her knees. Lucian looked up. "Dangerous," he said simply, "into the wrong people." "And what am I?" she asked. "To you?" There it was. The loaded question. He leaned back slowly, looking at her like she was a riddle. Not one he was trying to solve, one he was trying to protect. "Something I wasn't ready for," he said. She swallowed. "I'm not your mate." "And no," he said, "but you're something else, and I haven't figured it out yet." She should have left it there. She should have stayed quiet. But the storm inside her was rising. "Do you know what it's like?" she said suddenly, voice sharper than she meant. "And to be rejected? To have someone you're bonded to look at you like you're a mistake? Like you're not enough to be chosen?" Lucian's jaw tensed. She pushed on, tears burning now. "He was my mate, and he didn't even hesitate, just said the words and walked away, like it was easy." Lucian stood up, but she wasn't finished. "And I spent 2 days curled up in the woods because I couldn't even breathe. I begged the moon to take it back. I clawed at my skin because I couldn't stand the bond anymore. And the worst part?" She laughed bitterly. It didn't even hurt him. Lucian walked over slowly, stopping at the edge of the bed. He didn't touch her. He just knelt down in front of her and looked at her. "And I would never do that to you," he said, voice low and rough. "Even if you never want me. Even if you hate me for keeping you here. I would never throw you away like that." She stared at him. "You don't even know me, and I know enough." The room was quiet again. Her eyes flicked down to his hands, large, strong, calloused. One of them reached up, paused just before touching her. "May I?" he asked. She didn't trust her voice, so she nodded. His fingers brushed her ankle, then gently ran up to her knee. It wasn't sexual. It wasn't possessive. It was grounding, and it broke her. She leaned forward without thinking, head resting against his shoulder, shaking with the effort not to sob. Lucian held her gently, just his arms around her waist and his forehead resting against hers. Not trying to claim, just being. Time passed, but neither of them moved. She whispered, "Why me?" He didn't answer right away. Then, "But 'cause you're still standing." The next morning, Elara woke up with her head on the pillow and a soft blanket pulled over her. Lucian was gone. But for the first time since she got there, since the rejection, since the club, she felt calm. She stood, showered, dressed in fresh clothes someone had left for her. And then she saw it. A simple note on the vanity. Meet me in the south wing. We need to talk. L. She stared at it, then pocketed it. The south wing of the estate was quiet, colder, older. She followed the marble hallway down 2 turns before entering a small library. Lucian stood inside, waiting. But he wasn't alone. A woman was with him, tall, sleek, poised, probably in her early 30s. Her eyes sharp, her expression unreadable. Elara, Lucian said. Sis is Mara. She's going to help you. Help me what? Mara stepped forward. And learn how to use your wolf's strength, even if she doesn't shift. Elara blinked. Oh, think I have a wolf. I know you do, Lucian said. And I think she's been caged so long you forgot what she felt like. Elara swallowed. What if she doesn't come out? Mara's eyes glinted. And we teach you to fight without her, but I doubt that'll happen. Lucian looked at her with something like pride. And you've already survived the hardest part, he said. Now it's time to learn how to live. The training room wasn't what Elara expected. There were no weapons lining the walls, no floor-to-ceiling mirrors or intimidating machinery. Just an open space with worn mats, sunlight streaming through high-arched windows, and the sound of wind howling softly beyond the cliffs. It smelled like sage and old stone. And freedom. Mara stood in the center of the room, barefoot and still dressed in all black, arms crossed as Elara entered. You're late, she said, not unkindly, and I wasn't aware there was a schedule, Elara replied, folding her arms. Mara arched a brow. Then there is now. Lucian wasn't there, but Elara could feel him. Somewhere in the house or watching from a security feed. She wasn't sure which, and wasn't sure how she felt about it either. First lesson simple, Mara said. We're going to find your center. Elara blinked. Oh my... What? What your wolf, Mara clarified. And or whatever's left of her. You said you've never shifted? Elara hesitated. No, I felt something before, like pressure in my chest, heat, but she never comes out. Mara nodded thoughtfully. And trauma can bury the connection, especially rejection trauma. Elara flinched. She hated how the word still stung. Mara moved closer, her tone gentler now. But she's still in there. That instinct you used in the club, when you fought off that rogue? That wasn't adrenaline, sweetheart. That was her. She's already waking up. Elara's breath caught. You think so? Then I know so. Mara walked to the edge of the mat and gestured. Come on, sit. They sat across from each other, legs crossed, hands on their knees. Elara felt self-conscious, but Mara's calm presence kept her grounded. Oh, and close your eyes, Mara said. Now breathe. Elara did. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Feel your body, feel your heartbeat. She tried. Oh, now, Mara continued, her voice soft and steady. And listen for the part of you that never speaks in words, the growl in your belly, the wind in your blood, the part that howls when you dream. A minute passed, 2, then something strange happened. Elara's fingertips tingled, her lungs pulled in air like they were trying to taste it, and a low heat bloomed behind her ribs, slow and smoldering. A thrum like a drumbeat, like paws against earth. Her chest tightened, and then she saw her. Just a flicker, golden eyes in the dark. A wolf, not fully formed, but watching, waiting. Elara gasped, eyes flying open. Mara was already smiling. Then if she is, she said quietly. I told you she wasn't gone. Elara blinked rapidly. I saw her. Could. Mara stood. Now let's teach her to fight. 2 hours later, Elara was dripping in sweat, muscles aching, hair stuck to her face, and hands raw from striking pads and blocking Mara's sharp jabs. Mara didn't hold back. She wasn't cruel, but she didn't treat Elara like she was fragile either. And you have good instincts, Mara said between drills. So reflexes are sharp, that's her, she's waking up. Elara leaned on her knees, panting. And why do I feel like I'm dying? Because you're using muscles you haven't touched in years, physical and emotional. You've been surviving. Now you're learning to live. It felt like more than training. It felt like taking her body back. Every punch, every breath, Every moment she didn't quit was a step away from Jasper's rejection, a step away from being the girl who curled into herself and wept in the woods, a step toward becoming something new. Someone powerful. Later that night, she sat on the terrace wrapped in a blanket, drinking water and watching the moon. Her muscles still ached, but in a way that made her feel proud. Lucian joined her quietly, a soft rustle of footsteps on stone. He set down a plate beside her, sliced fruit, toast, a small cup of lavender tea. "Oh, and you didn't have to," she said, glancing up. "You've had a long day." He sat beside her, not too close, but not far either. The silence between them was warmer now, not stiff or charged, just comfortable. "You watched?" she asked. "Of course. And?" "You're strong." Elara rolled her eyes, "And I nearly fell over 3 times, and then still got up 4. She smiled, couldn't help it. Lucian reached over, plucked a strawberry from the plate and offered it to her without a word. She hesitated, but took it. Their fingers brushed. Electricity. She looked away quickly, cheeks burning, pretending the bite didn't feel more intimate than it should. "And wanted to ask," she began, carefully. "Why me, Lucian? Really? What made you take me?" He was quiet for a moment. Then, saw you in that club, and you looked like you were about to vanish." She frowned. "Vanish? Like you didn't want to be seen, like no one had seen you in a long time. And he paused, then exhaled. "I felt like that before." The quiet stretched, and then he added, "I didn't take you because I wanted to own you, Elara. I took you because I knew if I didn't, someone else would. Someone like Thorn. Or worse." She swallowed hard. He stood, brushing invisible lint from his jacket. "You don't have to trust me, not yet. But I'd never hurt you, and I'll never let anyone else do it either." And with that, he left. The next morning, Mara was waiting for her again. But this time, a third person was in the room, a man with short dark hair and an envelope in his hand. Mara's expression was grim. "Why, Lara," she said. "Sis came for you. It's from the Silverbane pack." Elara froze. She took the envelope with shaking hands, tore it open. Inside was a single piece of paper. No seal, no signature, just one sentence. "You're still mine, Elara. I'm coming for you." Her vision blurred. Lucian's voice echoed in her memory. "I'll never let anyone hurt you again." Elara looked up, and for the first time since arriving at the estate, she believed him. Elara didn't sleep that night, not really. The words from the letter replayed in her mind over and over like a needle stuck on a broken record. "Oh, you're still mine, Elara. I'm coming for you." It wasn't even signed. Jasper didn't have to. The handwriting was his. She remembered it all too well. Slanted, precise. The morning sun hadn't yet crept over the cliffs when Elara found herself wandering barefoot through the halls of the estate. The marble floors were cold under her feet, and the house was quiet, too quiet. The silence didn't soothe her. It only made the warning ring louder in her head. She ended up in the library. Of course, it was the one room that made her feel small in a safe way, like her problems might be manageable in the presence of so many stories. So many endings where the heroine made it out alive, changed, triumphant. She didn't hear Lucian until his voice cut softly through the stillness. "You couldn't sleep either?" Elara startled, spinning around. He was at the door, sleeves rolled up, tie loose around his neck like he'd been working all night. Or pacing just like she had. She shook her head. "Didn't try." Lucian stepped closer but kept a respectful distance. What did the letter say? "So you don't already know?" She asked flatly. "Don't you have people who read these things before they get to me?" His jaw tightened. "Not when it's hand-delivered by someone inside your former pack." Her heart dropped. "What?" Semi caught the courier. "A young wolf, barely of age. Said he was paid to bring the note and make sure it ended up in your hands without interference. Someone knew how to slip him past the perimeter." A cold chill slithered up her spine. "So Jasper has spies." Lucian nodded once. "And he knows where I am now." For a long beat, neither of them said a word. The pressure of reality settled like lead between them. Lucian finally spoke, voice low. Controlled. "We're tightening security. No one gets within half a mile of the estate without me knowing. Elara crossed her arms. And do you always control everything so obsessively? Lucian looked at her then, and this time there was no softness in his expression. And it comes to the people I care about, yes. The words slammed into her chest before she could prepare for them. People I care about. Elara's mouth went dry. She looked away quickly, trying to tame the ridiculous flutter in her stomach. "Oh, you don't even know me," she said, barely above a whisper. "I'm learning." His voice softened now, and I don't need to know every chapter to recognize something worth protecting. Her heart twisted, too raw, too soon. So she did what she always did when emotions threatened to split her wide open. She changed the subject, on teach me how to defend myself. Lucian blinked. Amara's already doing that. Since she's teaching me how to move, how to survive a fight. But I want to learn how you fight, Lucian. How you protect a pack. Person. His jaw flexed. She could see the hesitation in his eyes. "And Lara, to need this," she said firmly, "and because I don't want to be the girl Jasper can threaten anymore. I want to be ready if he comes." Lucian studied her for a long, long moment. Then finally, with a slow nod, he said, "Meet me on the lower training floor in 1 hour. Wear something you can bleed in." Her breath caught. "Is that supposed to scare me?" No," he said as he turned away. "It's supposed to remind you what you're capable of surviving." 1 hour later, Elara stood in a second, older training room built deep within the rock of the estate. The air was cool and smelled of iron and stone and sweat from generations past, a relic of a time when fights weren't for sport but survival. Lucian tossed her a pair of fingerless gloves. "Put these on." She did, tugging them tight. "First rule," he said as he rolled up his sleeves, "so you don't wait to be attacked. You anticipate. You read." He circled her like a predator sizing up prey. "And not your enemy, Elara. But I will be your opponent." Her heartbeat quickened. She nodded. Then he struck, fast, too fast. She barely dodged the swipe, stumbling backward and landing hard on her hands. "What the hell? You asked me to teach you," he growled. "So I will. You want to fight like me? Then learn what it feels like to face someone who's faster, stronger, merciless." He waited for her to rise. When she did, he came again, this time slower, forcing her to think, to move, block, dodge, duck. She countered once, her fist grazing his ribcage. He smiled. "Better. Again." The next hour was a blur of pain and momentum, of finding her rhythm and pushing past limits she didn't know she had. She fell, she got up, she bled, but by the end of it, she had landed a clean hit to Lucian's shoulder that made him stagger a step back. And he laughed. Not mocking, not cruel, pleased, impressed. "In your learning." Elara wiped blood from her lip, grinning despite the ache in her muscles. "And not the same girl who walked into your car that night." Lucian's eyes darkened. "No, you're not." For a long second, the air thickened between them. Then his hand lifted, hesitating, before brushing gently against her jaw. His fingers were calloused, warm. The touch was brief, too brief, but it left fire in its wake. "Elara," he murmured. "And you have no idea what you're becoming." She swallowed. "Neither do you." He smiled, a ghost of one, but it reached his eyes. Then he stepped back. The spell broke. "We're done for today." That night she stood at her window watching the trees sway under the moonlight. Her wolf stirred again, closer now, a presence pulsing beneath her skin, not quite awake, but no longer asleep. There was a knock on her door. When she opened it, Mara stood there holding a phone. "Tis just came through the pack line. You need to see it." Elara's stomach dropped as she took the device. It was a video of her old pack house, burning. Screams in the distance, chaos, and Jasper's voice, cold and clear. "This is only the beginning, Elara. Run all you like. He can't protect you forever." The video cut out. Elara stared at the black screen. Her hand didn't shake. Her heart didn't race. Because for the first time since all of this began, she wasn't afraid. She was ready. The sky turned gray the next morning, moody and heavy like it was mourning something before the storm even came. The video haunted the halls long after it ended. Lucian had watched it in silence. Mara hadn't said a word when she handed Elara the phone, but her knuckles had turned white, and her jaw was clenched tight enough to crack teeth. It wasn't just a threat, it was a message. Jasper had burned down the old pack house, her childhood home, where her mother once made breakfast humming old tunes, where her father trained the younger wolves with patience and a quiet strength. Gone. All of it. Not because Jasper wanted her back, but because he wanted her punished for leaving. Lucian called an emergency war council. Elara wasn't supposed to be there, so she went anyway. The room was circular, carved into the stone near the heart of the estate. 12 people sat around a long obsidian table, elders, warriors, and Lucian's most trusted betas. One empty chair at the head. Lucian's... Elara stood just inside the door, leaning against the wall. They noticed her immediately, some stiffening, others exchanging quick glances. Mara, already seated, gave a slight nod, subtle, but it said she's earned her place. Lucian entered a heartbeat later. His gaze landed on Elara, lingering just long enough to say, "I know you're here. I won't stop you." He took his seat. Silence fell like a blade. "Then we have a problem," Lucian began, voice quiet but commanding. "And it's not just Jasper." A murmur rippled through the room. "And she has allies," Lucian continued. "Not just mercenaries. Wolves, alphas, rogues. Some of them from packs who are still angry that I consolidated territory after the Eastfield Rebellion." An older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes leaned forward. "So you think this is political?" "Some think Jasper is ambitious. He always was. But this is more than revenge. He's making a play, and Elara is the symbol he's using to ignite it." All eyes turned to her. She didn't flinch. "What would you have us do?" a beta asked. "Wait for him to strike again?" "Oh no," Lucian said. "When we prepare, we intercept, and we strike first." The air shifted. It was the moment before the flood, the breath before the war cry. "Anon training doubled," Lucian ordered, "and say perimeters extended. I want eyes on every rogue territory between here and the Southern Vale, and I want Elara under constant protection." That snapped the silence. A younger male warrior stood, voice tight. "With all due respect, Alpha, she's not one of us. She's not pack. She's a rejected mate with a target on her back. If anything, she's a liability." Lucian moved so fast the warrior never saw it coming. In a blink he had the man pinned against the wall by the collar. "You think she's a liability?" Lucian hissed. "Since she's survived exile, rejection, and Jasper. She walked into my home with nothing and never once begged for protection. She's earned more than your respect, she's earned your silence." The room went deathly quiet. Lucian's hand unclenched slowly. He released the man with a shove. "And she's not just my problem," he growled. "She's ours now. We stand together, or we fall." Later that night, Elara sat by the fire in one of the quieter lounges. Her bruises from the training session still ached, and her shoulders were tight from the tension of the council. She wasn't sure if she felt pride or pressure. Lucian entered without knocking. She didn't move, and didn't have to defend me like that. "T.S. I did." She looked at him then. The firelight made his face seem carved from gold and shadow, sharp, unreadable, burning from within. He crossed the room and stopped just a few feet from her. "And you walked into my life, I didn't know what you were," he said softly. "An stray, a complication, a ghost." Her breath caught. "But now I know better," he continued. "And you're not a complication, Elara. You're a catalyst." The word lodged in her chest. "And I saw the video," she said finally, voice barely above a whisper. "So I didn't cry." "Ha, good. Ensign wanted to. But I think I'm too angry." He sat beside her. Their legs didn't touch, but they were close. Closer than they'd ever been in a quiet space like this. "And you have every right to be angry." "See, you want to fight him," she admitted. "Oh, not just run. Not just survive." Lucian's gaze sharpened. "And then we'll prepare for war." Elara turned to face him fully. "And if I stand by your side, Lucian, will they accept me?" His expression shifted, softer, sadder. "Eventually. But I don't care if they don't." "And do," she said, voice cracking slightly. Because I don't want to always be the outsider. I want to belong. Somewhere, even if it's not." She stopped herself. Lucian's voice was like silk stretched over steel. Like, even if it's not with him. A pause. Yes. He reached out slowly, like she was a flame he was willing to burn for. His hand brushed her cheek, knuckles ghosting over her skin. Oh, belong more than you know, he whispered, with or without a mark, with or without a mate bond. Her heart pounded. This, she breathed. Kiss can't happen if it's just because you feel sorry for me. Lucian smiled, but it wasn't kind. It was fair. Aunt Elara, there is not a single part of me that feels sorry for you. There's a part of me that wants to protect you, yes, but there's also a part that wants to ruin every man who's ever looked at you, especially him. Silence. Then, shouldn't say things like that, she whispered. Why not? And because I might believe them. Lucian leaned in, his breath brushing her skin. Then believe them. Her body tensed, not in fear, in longing. The heat between them pulsed like electricity waiting for a fuse. But he didn't kiss her. Instead, he pulled back, his eyes devouring her face like he was memorizing every inch. One, you deserve a choice, Elara. Not just to survive, but to want. And I'm not taking that away from you, not even for one night. And then he left, just like that, leaving her shaking by the fire, and wanting him more than she ever thought possible. The mornings at Lucian's estate were quiet, wrapped in the hush of early frost and the slow crackling of firewood. But not today. Today the air carried something else, urgent. Elara rose early, just after dawn, when the sky was still a bruised purple, the kind of color that promised a storm. Her muscles ached from yesterday's training, but she didn't care. The fire inside her burned hotter than any bruise. She wanted to be ready. Lucian's sparring field was tucked beyond the stables, hidden behind a grove of winter-thin trees. The frost on the grass glistened beneath her boots, and the air bit at her cheeks, but she felt alive. Mara was already there. Couldn't sleep? Mara asked without turning. Elara shook her head. You? Mara snorted. Lucian has me working double time. He's preparing for something. Elara picked up one of the wooden practice staffs leaning against the fence. Oh, we're all preparing. Mara looked her up and down, then tossed her a second staff. "'Tin good. Because I'm not going easy on you today." What followed was an hour of brutal, bone-deep sparring. Elara's arms trembled with the weight of each strike, each block. She was better than she'd been a week ago, faster, sharper, but Mara was still a force, still faster, and still holding back. "Don't go easy on me," Elara gasped, lunging forward, her staff clashing with Mara's. Mara narrowed her eyes. "Oh, I'm not." "And you are. Think you're ready to fight Jasper's people?" "Said I have to be." Mara lowered her staff, stepping close, her expression hard. "It's not just about strength, Elara. It's control. It's knowing when to strike and when to wait. You want to survive, fine. But if you want to win, you have to be patient." Elara's chest heaved. "And patience doesn't stop a knife." "Oh, no," Mara said, gaze dark. Timing does." Elara dropped her staff and turned, because someone was standing at the edge of the grove, a figure in a long coat half-shadowed by the trees. Mara moved instantly, positioning herself between Elara and the stranger, her hand reaching for the dagger at her hip, but Elara's breath caught, because she recognized him. "Killian?" she said, barely louder than a whisper. The man stepped forward, pulling down the hood of his coat. It was him, her brother. Older, sharper, tired. His hair was longer, threaded with silver at the temples, and his eyes, those deep hazel eyes that used to twinkle with mischief, were heavy with something like regret. "Elara," he said. "Instead, you look just like her." Her stomach twisted. "You don't get to say that." "And say no." Mara didn't move. "And you know him?" "And he's my brother," Elara said, voice flat. "And more he was. Before he left." Killian's jaw tensed. "Sin didn't leave. I was exiled." "Same difference." "And no, it's not." Mara gave Elara a pointed look, then slowly lowered her blade. "And you have 5 minutes," she said, then stepped away, but not far. Elara crossed her arms, every part of her coiled like a spring. "What do you want?" Sai came to warn you," Killian said. About Jasper?" "No, about Lucian." Elara blinked. Oh, what are you talking about? Killian looked around, voice dropping. You don't know what he's planning. He's not just building defenses. He's building a militia. He's not just preparing for Jasper, he's preparing for a takeover of the entire region. She shook her head. That's not true. Killian's mouth twisted. And you think he rescued you out of the goodness of his heart? Finhay protected me when no one else did. Because you're useful to him. You're leverage. You're the rejected mate of Jasper. The perfect excuse to declare war. You think that's a coincidence? Elara's breath caught. Lucian's dangerous, Elle, Killian said softly. I'm not saying Jasper isn't a monster, but Lucian's no saint, and he's playing a long game. She stepped back. Why now? After all these years, why now? Because I've seen what happens to people caught in the middle of alpha wars. And I don't want you to be one of them. Too late, she whispered. Mara returned at that moment, eyes cold. Time's up. Killian met Elara's gaze. Just be careful. Then he disappeared into the trees. That night, Elara sat in Lucian's study, staring at the fire. He poured them both whiskey. The scent of cedar and heat surrounded them. You're quiet, he said finally. And so my brother showed up today. Lucian didn't react. Killian. She knew? So now I keep tabs on exiles. Especially ones related to you. And said you're building a militia. That you're planning to take the region. Lucian turned, eyes hardening. And if I am? Elara stared. Is that true? Then I'm not starting a war, he said carefully, but I'll finish one. Is that all I am to you? She asked, heart thudding. A reason to fight? Lucian stepped closer, gaze burning. And you think I would risk everything, my pack, my life, just to use you? Sinan, I don't know what to think anymore. He stopped in front of her, chest rising and falling. Then let me make it clear. He took her hand, warm, rough, steady, and I don't want you because of who you were, or who you were tied to. I want you because of who you are now, right now, here. Elara's throat tightened. He stepped even closer, and now they were chest to chest, breath to breath. You make me want things I didn't think I deserved, he whispered. And make me burn, Elara. And then, finally, he kissed her. It wasn't soft. It wasn't slow. It was hungry. Raw, honest. Like all the things they'd buried had finally clawed their way to the surface. Elara melted into him, her hands tangling in his shirt, his arms wrapping around her like armor. Their bodies collided like storms. And for a moment, there was no war, no Jasper, no past, just this, him, her, fire. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Lucian rested his forehead against hers. I'm not sorry, he said, but neither am I. But deep in her chest, Killian's warning still echoed, and in the shadows of Lucian's eyes, a flicker of something unspoken remained. The sky was dark, not with storm clouds, but with silence. It had been 3 days since Killian's warning, and Elara hadn't spoken to Lucian about it again. Not because she didn't want to, but because every time she looked at him now, she saw conflict. Not the kind born from war, but the kind born from desire, from restraint, from the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, and she was watching. Every moment, Lucian had started avoiding her, slipping out early for training drills with his men, and not returning until long after dusk. The nights had grown colder, and still, she lay awake, alone in that massive bed, aware of every creak in the floorboards, every shift in the house that wasn't him. But tonight was different. Tonight, it rained. The kind of rain that felt like a cleansing, like the world was being stripped bare. Elara couldn't sleep, not because of the storm, but because she felt him, like his presence was a gravity she couldn't resist, tugging at her skin, her breath, her pulse. She climbed out of bed barefoot, her cotton sleep dress clinging to her legs, as she padded down the quiet corridor of Lucian's. The wooden floors were cool beneath her feet, and the rain beat softly against the windows. His study door was ajar, a golden light glowing from within. She didn't knock. Lucian sat by the fire, one hand wrapped around a glass of dark liquor, the other resting on his knee. He was shirtless, his body a canvas of raw power and quiet scars, His hair was damp from the rain, and his eyes, when he looked up, burned like coals. "I wish you should be asleep," he said, his voice low, husky. "So should you," she replied, stepping in. He didn't speak as she moved closer, only watched her with that unreadable expression. The storm outside cracked, lightning flashing once against the windows. "Why are you avoiding me?" she asked, stopping just a foot away from him. Lucian looked down at his glass. "Elara, and no lies," she said. "You just say it." He exhaled slowly, jaw tight. "And because if I touch you again, I won't stop," he said quietly. "And I don't know what happens after that." Her breath caught. "Oh, I mean if we have sex," she said, honest. Bold. Lucian's gaze flicked to hers. Dark, intense. "Yes." Elara stepped forward and took the glass from his hand, placing it gently on the table. She sank to her knees between his legs and looked up at him, her expression open, trembling, but sure. "I don't want you to stop." Lucian's breath left him in one slow, ragged exhale. "Elara." She reached for him, her fingers brushing over his bare chest, feeling the thunderous beat of his heart. "And I've wanted you since the first time you looked at me like I was yours." He leaned forward, slowly, his hands cupping her face like she might shatter. "You are," he whispered, "and mine." Then he kissed her, and this time there was no restraint. He lifted her into his arms and carried her from the study to the bedroom across the hall, his bedroom. Rain thundered against the windows as he set her down gently onto silk sheets, his mouth never leaving hers. Their kiss deepened, hungry, desperate, devouring. Lucian peeled the sleep dress from her body with a kind of reverence, like every inch of her skin was sacred. He kissed her collarbone, her throat, the curve of her breast, his touch never rushed, but urgent all the same. Elara's fingers trembled as she undid the clasp of his trousers, pushing them down slowly, bearing him to the stormlight. His body was everything she'd imagined, broad, powerful, commanding. But it was his eyes that undid her, because they held something feral, something unmasked. He wanted her like he needed to breathe. He lowered himself over her, their bodies aligning, skin to skin, heat to heat. Lucian paused, their foreheads pressed together. "And this isn't just sex," he said, voice shaking. Elara nodded, heart pounding. "And no." And then he entered her. The world stopped. The air between them shattered into fire and breath and sensation. He moved slow, deep, his hand cradling her jaw as though anchoring himself to her. Their bodies moved in tandem, a rhythm born from months of tension, of longing, of restraint finally broke. Elara moaned softly, her legs wrapping around him, her nails dragging down his back. Lucian groaned her name like a prayer, his voice rough and undone. "Go feel like home," he whispered, thrusting deeper. She arched beneath him, overwhelmed, undone, her soul burning. The storm outside built and broke, lightning flashing like a pulse. But inside that room, in that moment, they were the storm. He made love to her like she was the only thing that ever mattered, slow and rough, desperate and reverent. Their hands clasped, their mouths sought each other again and again. And when she came, Lucian held her through it, whispering her name into her skin. When he followed, it was with a groan so guttural and raw it tore through her, his body trembling above her, pouring everything into her. All the fire, all the pain, all the love. He collapsed beside her, pulling her into his arms, their bodies still tangled. For a long time they lay there in silence, the fire crackling, the rain softening outside. Lucian buried his face in her. "And you've ruined me." She smiled softly against his chest. Good." He pulled her closer, tighter. "And not letting you go," he said, voice hoarse. "And I'm not asking you to." And for the first time since she was rejected, Elara didn't feel broken, she felt claimed. Not because of a mate bond, not because of some prophecy, but because he chose her. Because she chose him back. The scent of him lingered on her skin. When Elara opened her eyes the next morning, sunlight filtered softly through the heavy drapes, bathing Lucian's bedroom in a golden haze. His arm was still around her waist, his breath warm against the back of her neck. She could feel every inch of his bare skin pressed to hers, the heat of his body cocooning her like a second blanket. And she didn't want to move. She'd never felt more safe or more seen. The night before had cracked something open in her, something buried deep, not just lust or want, but something vulnerable. She hadn't just given her body to Lucien, she'd given her trust, but peace was a fickle thing. There was a knock on the door. Elara blinked, startled. Lucien groaned, his arm tightening around her. Ignore it. But the knock came again, louder, urgent. Lucian sat up slowly, rubbing his hand over his face. Stay here. He pulled on a pair of dark slacks and moved toward the door with the effortless grace of a predator. Elara curled up beneath the sheets, the scent of sex and wood smoke clinging to the air, a lingering reminder of everything they'd shared. She heard the low murmur of voices. Lucian's clipped tone. A growl, then, "Elara!" he called, voice tight. "And you should come see this." Her stomach dropped. She rose quickly, slipping on one of his shirts from a chair by the bed. It hung off her shoulders, the fabric soft and warm. She padded barefoot into the hall, heart hammering. Lucian stood near the front entrance, his beta, Marcos, beside him. Between them lay a wooden crate, blood soaked into the corners of the fabric that covered it. A scent hit her nose, iron, sharp and pungent. Lucian moved the cloth aside. Elara gasped. Inside was a shirt, torn, bloodied, familiar. Killian's. Her legs buckled slightly, and Lucian was there in a flash, catching her. "Is he a nobody?" Marco said grimly. "Oh, just this." Lucian's eyes were molten steel. "It's a message." Elara's fingers tightened around the fabric. "Jasper?" Lucian nodded once, jaw clenched. "And he's letting me know he has one of my informants. Likely Killian. And that he's willing to start playing dirty." "But why send it to you?" she asked softly. "Why not the council?" Lucian's voice was cold. "And because Jasper knows I care about you. This isn't a warning to me. It's a warning to you." Her blood ran cold. "I need to find him," she said, stepping back. "And we need to do something." "And you're not going anywhere near Jasper," Lucian snapped. "Ain't just got you, Elara. I'm not losing you because of him." "Sent you think I want to lose Killian?" She shot back, her voice rising. "Hey, he's like a brother to me, Lucian. He was the only one who looked out for me when I was cast aside." Marcos cleared his throat and subtly stepped away, giving them space. Lucian ran a hand through his hair, eyes stormy. "And no, I know what he means to you. But Jasper is unpredictable. Dangerous. He'll use you like bait." "Sen let him," she whispered. His head snapped toward her. "Absolutely not." "And not asking for permission. Elara, and you don't get to lock me in a tower like I'm something to protect. I'm not helpless. You know what Jasper did to me? You know what he took from me." Lucian's gaze softened for a heartbeat, just a flicker, but it was enough. "You're not bait," he said finally, "but you are the key. Jasper's afraid of you for a reason. He wouldn't make a move unless he thought you were a threat." Her heart beat faster. "And what are you saying?" "So and I think there's more to this than a personal vendetta. I think Jasper's plans go beyond you, beyond me, beyond the council. And I think Killian knew something, so he silenced him, or worse. He's holding him, torturing him for answers." Elara swallowed hard, her hands trembling. "Then we don't wait." Lucian looked at her long and hard. "Are you willing to go all the way with this, no matter what it means?" "Yes," she said, voice clear. "And because I trust you." Something changed in his expression, a darkness, a devotion. He stepped closer and cupped her face. "And we prepare," he said softly, "and we take the bastard down." He kissed her, hard and full of promise. A knock came again, this time at the outer gates. Marcos moved quickly, disappearing into the rain. Moments later, he returned, this time with a note sealed in red wax. Lucian broke it open, eyes scanning. "Jasper wants to meet," he muttered. "He's offering a trade." Elara's chest tightened. "Killian?" Lucian handed her the letter. "Come to the Hollow Glen Woods, midnight. Come alone, or I send his head next." She stared at it. "And he won't actually let me leave if I go alone." No," Lucian said. But we'll let him think you are." "And when we meet him?" Lucian's eyes were fire. "And we end this." The woods were silent. Not the peaceful kind of silent, but the kind that made your skin prickle, like the forest was holding its breath. Watching. Elara moved through the mist with careful steps, her boots crunching softly against the damp leaves. The moon was full and sharp overhead, casting long silver beams through the bare branches like skeletal fingers pointing the way. She wore black. Lucian had wanted to come, of course he had, but they both knew Jasper would smell him a mile away, so instead, Lucian had stationed his best guards at the perimeter of Hollow Glen, high in the trees, hidden in the fog. His beta, Marcos, was watching her from a distance, ready to move if anything went wrong. Still, Elara was alone, at least as far as Jasper would know, and he would want her that way. Her fingers brushed the locket beneath her shirt, a small silver disc that Lucian had given her right before she left. Inside it was a thin comm link, connected directly to him. If she whispered, he'd hear her. If she screamed, he'd come running. She just hoped it wouldn't come to that. A voice echoed ahead. "Well, well, you actually came." Jasper stepped out from behind a crooked tree, the blood-red symbol of his rogue faction etched into the lapel of his black coat. His dark hair was longer than she remembered, curling at the ends. His eyes gleamed with something between triumph and madness. Elara. She hated how her name sounded in his mouth, like poison wrapped in silk. "You asked for me," she said calmly. "And here." He smiled, slow and sharp. "And of course you are. You've always been obedient when it really mattered. That's what made you such a delightful mate." "At first." She held her ground. "Where's Killian?" Jasper lifted a hand. From the shadows, 2 guards emerged, dragging a figure between them. Bloodied, weak, but alive. "Killian!" she cried, her voice cracking. His head lolled to the side, one eye swollen shut. Elara! Her feet moved instinctively, but Jasper held out a hand. Tsk, one more step, and I slit his throat. "Right here, in front of you." She stopped. "What do you want?" she asked. "Why drag this out? You rejected me. You made it clear you didn't want me. So what is this really about?" Jasper's smile widened. "Oh, Elara, you still don't get it, do you?" He circled her like a wolf. "This was never about wanting you. It was about breaking you." Her fists clenched. He leaned in. "You had the nerve to defy me, to survive without me. You humiliated me in front of the entire council. And then, you let yourself be taken by Lucien Vale, my enemy. Some rejected me," she said coldly. "So you broke the bond. You threw me away." "Yes, because I couldn't control you the way I wanted to. Not then." He looked her up and down. But now I've learned something new." Elara frowned. "What?" He leaned in close. "I don't need to mate with you to control you. I just need to get inside your head." She blinked, and the air shifted. Something slithered through her mind, a presence, dark, intrusive. He was trying to compel her, to use alpha influence without the bond. But something stopped him. Her wolf snarled inside her. She pushed him out. Jasper stumbled back, eyes wide. Elara stepped forward, fury pulsing in every word. "You have no power over me, Jasper. Not anymore. I'm not your mate. I'm not your pawn. And I sure as hell am not afraid of you." From the trees, a whistle rang out. It was the signal. Lucian and his men descended like shadows, fast, silent. Jasper barely had time to react before he was surrounded. Lucian was the last to step forward, his eyes glowing gold, his rage a living thing. "When you laid hands on my mate," he growled, each word a death sentence. Jasper reached for a blade. Lucian struck. The fight was quick, brutal. Jasper was strong, cunning. But Lucian fought like a man with everything to lose. He fought like a man in love. Elara pulled Killian to safety, whispering softly to him as Marcos bandaged his wounds. And when the final blow came, when Lucian's fist collided with Jasper's jaw, knocking him to the ground, Elara stood tall beside him, breathing hard, but whole. Lucian knelt beside Jasper, blood dripping from his brow. "You're done," he growled. "Your reign of fear ends here." And then, with one last strike, he rendered the rogue Alpha unconscious. Back at the estate, it was nearly dawn by the time they returned. Killian was resting. The medics said he'd live. Lucian stood with Elara on the balcony, the sun rising slowly over the hills. She leaned against his chest, listening to the quiet rhythm of his heartbeat. "Are you all right?" he asked. She nodded. "He's gone. It's over." "And no," he said softly, "it's just beginning." She looked up at him. "What do you mean?" Lucian cupped her face. "I meant what I said. I'm not letting you go. Not now. Not ever." Her heart skipped. "Elara," he continued, "I want you by my side. As my equal, as my partner. I want to rebuild this pack with you. Not just as my mate." He dropped to one knee. Her breath caught. "But as my Luna. Will you accept that?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." And when he rose and kissed her, it wasn't desperate or broken or angry. It was healing. It was whole. It was everything they'd fought for. The storm was over, and for the first time in a long time, Elara could breathe. The estate was quieter now, with the rogue threat dismantled and Jasper imprisoned in the council's high-security compound, though she knew true peace was never permanent in a world filled with political power plays and pack tensions. Elara felt something close to it settling in her chest. A quiet certainty. She stood before the full-length mirror in Lucian's private chamber, adjusting the silk draping of her ceremonial gown. It was unlike anything she'd ever worn, deep forest green with gold embroidery, clinging softly to her frame like it had been made just for her. The wide neckline revealed the mark Lucian had left on her collarbone a few nights ago, their final mutual claiming that bound their bond as equal mates. She traced the mark now with trembling fingers. It didn't ache. It pulsed like a heartbeat, like a promise. Behind her, the door creaked open. Lucian entered without knocking, something in his expression softening the moment he saw her. He was dressed in formal alpha robes, black and gold, his crest emblazoned across his shoulder. But it was his eyes that made her breath catch. They still looked at her like she was the most precious thing he'd ever touched. "A new look," he exhaled. "A god's, Elara, you're beyond beautiful." She turned toward him, unable to hide the slow, teasing smile. "You're not looking so bad yourself, Alpha Vale." He stepped closer, catching her hand in his. "See ready?" he asked quietly. "And once we go down there, this becomes real." She looked up at him. "I've been waiting my whole life to be chosen, not because of a prophecy, not because of my bloodline, but because someone saw me, really saw me, and wanted me." His fingers tightened around hers. "I've always seen you," he whispered. She pressed her forehead to his. "I'm ready." The Luna ceremony, the main hall, was overflowing with pack members, allies, council representatives, and even a few humans granted special access for the occasion. It had been years since a ceremony of this scale had taken place, certainly not one that united two powerful territories under a new leadership forged by war and trust. Lucian stepped forward first, his voice deep and resonant as he addressed the gathered crowd. "And many of you know how this began," he said, "with blood, with betrayal, with the pain of what we lost. But standing here today, I see what we've gained." He turned to Elara. "I see the woman who stood in the ashes and rose anyway, who chose not to be defined by a rejection, who fought not just for herself but for all of us. And today, I offer her not just the title of Luna." He dropped to one knee. "But my loyalty, my heart, my soul." Gasps filled the room. Elara stepped forward slowly, her heart thundering. A hush fell over the crowd as she lifted her voice. "And I was born into a pack that saw me as weak," she said. "And I was told I was unworthy of power, of love, of purpose. But I've learned something." She looked out at the sea of faces. "You don't have to be chosen by fate to matter. You don't have to be born to lead. You become strong by surviving. And today I rise not because of fate, but because I chose myself first, and because Lucien Vale chose me not out of obligation, but out of love." She extended her hand to him. "And now I choose you." Lucian stood, emotion flickering in his eyes. The ceremonial chains of leadership were brought forth. A thin silver circlet for Elara and a matching black and gold band for Lucian. They placed them on each other's heads as tradition dictated. A murmur passed through the crowd like a collective heartbeat. And then, the final rite. Elara tilted her head, exposing the curve of her neck. Lucian leaned in and pressed a reverent kiss to her bond mark. A symbol of unity, of strength, of shared power. And when they turned to the crowd together, hands entwined, the room erupted. Applause, howls, cheers that shook the very walls. The Luna had risen, and she would not be forgotten. That night the estate was bathed in moonlight when Elara stepped out onto the balcony. Below, the celebrations still burned. Music, laughter, dancing. But up here, in the quiet, she could finally exhale. Lucian joined her moments later, his arms slipping around her waist from behind. "And you stole the show," he murmured. She smiled. "And I think we both did." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the stars. "And you know," she said, "and part of me always thought I'd spend my life trying to prove I was worth something." "And never had to prove a damn thing to me," Lucian said softly. "Oh, and I'm glad you finally believe it too." She turned in his arms. "And I love you," she said. He kissed her gently. "And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never forget it." Epilogue. 1 year later, the estate gardens were in full bloom as Elara walked barefoot through the grass, her fingers trailing across the lavender stalks. A soft breeze teased her hair, and a rustle behind her made her smile. "Lucian, I swear if you try to distract me while I'm meditating again..." And too late. His arms encircled her from behind. "And you're glowing, you know that?" She tilted her head back with a grin. "Oh, am I?" He kissed her cheek. "Oh, you are... definitely." Pregnant glow. Her smile deepened. "Oh, I can't believe it's happening." "Saint I can," he said. "And you were made to be more than a Luna. You're going to be an amazing mother." She turned in his arms, the sunlight casting a golden halo around her. "And you," she said softly, "are going to be the best father any pup could ask for." Lucian kissed her then, slow and deep and full of everything they'd built together. And in that kiss was every battle won, every scar earned, every vow made, rejected, chosen, loved, at last, the end. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you loved it and you would love for a part 2, kindly comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more amazing content. Drop a comment with your favorite moment, and I'll see you in the next one.